Hello and welcome to another fully live Q&A episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I'm a security researcher at Varonis, and today, per usual, we have my good friend and fellow hacker Alex on the stream to help us answer your hacker questions of the week. Now, if you haven't seen the stream before, we are taking your questions that are both left on our YouTube videos and also questions that are left live. So if you've got a great question, make sure to leave them on our YouTube channels because we go through, we look at our videos each week, and we try to answer all the best questions. So yeah, we're gonna get through those today and also give you a little update about what we are working on. Being a hacker and a security researcher, we're frequently working on some interesting and cool projects. So yeah, it's great to check in with all of you once a week, see what's going on, and talk about the videos we put out for this week. Okay, so Alex, what about you? What have you been working on this week?
I just want to preface this by saying your project is going to show me up after this, but more Nugget stuff per usual. We're sort of gearing up for hopefully an upcoming launch with the Rubber Nugget. So I've been working on implementing a web interface, and also, if we switch over to my screen, adding some more features to sort of the tactile interface that's built in on the Rubber Nugget software. So we've been working on this sort of like 3-click payload deployment system for the Rubber Nugget that makes it like really easy to select payloads by like category and operating system type and stuff like that. But we've also been adding some other features that make it easier to get visual feedback of how the payload is running. So if I just show this demonstration real quick, you can see we have little pop-up animations and also reactive colors on the Wi-Fi Nugget that sort of show you the status of the payload as it's running. So you're able to monitor stuff like the delays that are implemented, the strings that are being typed out, and other Ducky script aliases as they're being run, which I find really cool because with other things that run Ducky script, you can't really like visually gauge that in the same way and get the same level of feedback.
Yeah, as far as I know, this is the only Hack5 product where you can see the status of the payload in real time on the screen as it's running. So if you're doing debugging, you want to see like where exactly it's getting tripped up, you can see whether it's your script that's getting held up or if it's the computer that's stuck, which I didn't realize I wanted that feature until you made it.
Yeah, it's been really helpful for like debugging. That's actually why I implemented it at first, so I could just like see on screen like what was happening because the serial connection kept dropping out. And then I just found that it was like a really helpful feature, so now we're going to be implementing that.
Also, somebody in the chat was asking if anyone's gotten their hands on a flipper yet. We want one so badly, and I've reached out, but I feel bad requesting one when so many people have ordered one and then they're still kind of waiting for one, so it's probably going to be a little bit until we get our hands on one. But if anybody does get a flipper, we really want to check it out. They seem cool.
Yeah,
all right. So Alex has been working on features for the Wi-Fi Nugget, which you can also pick up on wifinugget.com, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the S2 Wi-Fi Nugget, which is super cool. And I've been working on 2 different projects, really. I have been working on this thing that's sitting in front of me. So if you might have noticed that I have this weird 3D printed thing here, we're going to do an episode on SCADA hacking and industrial hacking, and one of the most famous examples of this was Stuxnet, which is where malware was introduced to these centrifuges that were performing nuclear enrichment, and they started spinning so fast that they broke themselves. So we were like, wouldn't it be cool to like build like a centrifuge and then figure out a way to basically break it through an attack and show you guys like what it looks like to do that in kind of a more modern way. And we're going to do this more for like a cloud way rather than using like a USB stick, because like otherwise we have to write firmware and then update malicious firmware, and recreating the exact thing is a little much. But we can at least create a centrifuge that's, you know, able to run safely at a couple speeds and then might destroy itself or damage itself at higher speeds. So I've done a couple different models. This is our most recent one. It's very long and it's also very weak. So the design is such that if we add some weight to it, well, when I plug it in,
whoa,
you can see it's very, very unstable. And
what happens if I put a finger?
No.
Whoa.
Okay.
Hey,
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because I put tape in it. Nope, stop. Okay, so the design is such that if you attach some weights to it and started spinning it at full capacity and really revved it up, it would probably spin itself apart and cause some rather dramatic damage while this happens. So there's other different models that we've been doing. This is probably the weakest one. If you're a nerd about 3D printing, this is like 2% infill with a single layer for basically every part, and it's very weak, but the plastic is just too strong for it to fly apart on its own. So we are currently taking a look at other ways we can create devices that destroy themselves. And as viewers of Hack5, we would love your input. So if you take a look at my screen, we've kind of come up with a little spreadsheet of different ideas for how you could create a device that breaks itself. So we could fill up something with a fluid, with a pump, and then maybe overflow it and have it destroy itself. And we kind of rated how cool it would be for these things to break themselves. And we kind of settled on like a motor spins a centrifuge, and then the motor like explodes and everything goes flying. So these are our ideas. If you've got an idea for a device that destroys itself that we could have as the device we're attacking in our video, we would love to hear some suggestions. This one I think is a pretty good idea, but we still haven't gotten all the kinks worked out. So if someone has a better one, then please let us know. It would be really cool. So
I think the centrifuge is like a good callback to Stuxnet, just like minus the uranium part, I guess.
Yeah. Yes.
I also did like the idea of like taking over an IoT system. So like if some poor person has like a home monitoring thing for like their plants, which was my idea. If they have like, what was it? Oh, like a thing that was like heating up their plants. If it was like measuring temperature or whatever, and just like blow it up. That one was really cool.
Yeah, or like kill the simulated plants. We wouldn't kill real plants unless they were invasive, maybe. So that's what I've been working on, setting up this episode of attacking an industrial device, because you hear it all the time now, like how people are going after them and stuff. And then my other project I've been working on is this very cool 3D printed wind speed measure anemometer.
Oh, it's a fidget spinner.
No, sure. And it uses a pretty standard like skateboard ball bearing in order to rotate around. And I have a magnet that's glued on here, and then a Hall effect sensor inside here. So as it spins, I wrote a little bit of CircuitPython code, which is really short, that will detect when this rotates. I now have to figure out how to calculate wind speed based off of rotation, which is a lot of unfun math. Well, that's what I've been working on, as well as a cool new feature where I'm trying to set up canary tokens programmatically, so you can use a Wi-Fi nugget to make a canary token that then sits on your network and monitors it. But that one's not quite done yet. So, all right, with all that out of the way, if you have any questions about the research we're working on, kind of set my QR code stuff to the side, but I can still answer QR code questions. Feel free to ask us. Part of the fun is getting to tell you guys about what we've been up to and then getting to hear your feedback. Maybe we haven't considered something that we should add to one of Alex's features, or maybe there's something I could do with this weird centrifuge to make it break more easily. Either way, it's great to hear from everyone. So please, if you have any ideas, let us know. And Alex, let's go ahead and get ready to take the first questions.
Awesome.
And someone already said a smart thermostat, maybe. Actually, that would be pretty cool. If you could get in and like change the balance between like the sensor and then the heater, and maybe report like a false sensor reading, then you could probably make it so that the sensor the heater stays on all the time and maybe starts a fire.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
That was like more or less our idea with the plants, but I guess now we can just like overheat some poor person. That'd be great.
Cool. All right. What's the first question?
Someone asks, besides MikroTik devices that utilize router OS, what other routers can be compromised using common SSH attack vectors? I think out of the box, I don't really know any routers that ship with an operating system that has like SSH enabled, but I know like OpenWRT has like the option to enable SSH, and a lot of people are like running that. So that's about the extent I have. Knowledge about that.
Yeah, so I've used Routersploit a lot, and Routersploit doesn't care what kind of IoT device you are when it goes after different devices that are connected. It'll go after anything connected to a network and look for all sorts of vulnerabilities, from SSH to all sorts of other ways you could get into it with like a web interface that might have vulnerabilities. So Routersploit, which I'm going to try to pull up real quick, is a really, really great way of assessing whether or not any of these have vulnerabilities. And it looks like, yeah, I have it up, so you can switch over there and see. So what Routersploit will do is an audit, effectively, of all the devices on a network, and then attack one by one each different device and see whether or not it's vulnerable to some of these really common default credentials or other things that might allow you to break in. Now, I have seen in practice, switches, I have seen network extenders are particularly vulnerable. They're kind of like the last layer of defense of a network, where at like a academic campus or like other places where they have a network that will extend for really long ways, they will use these network extenders to kind of like bridge out their network. And that's fine, except that if you have a direct connection to one of these outer layers of the network, I find that they have lots of default credentials. There's lots of features that are just either not set up or just kind of just like using default creds. So that can allow you to very, very easily compromise these sorts of like edge of network devices. I find that they're by far the most vulnerable from just having run this specific program a lot. So yeah, there's a lot of different types of devices that are networking devices, like network extenders, that kind of get overlooked because people like lock down their router and then they have like a cheap little network extender that might have all sorts of vulnerabilities. So I would say, like for me anyways, network extenders are another type of networking device that's like a router that's still very susceptible to these sorts of attacks. Very interesting, because I didn't really think about those network extenders until it got to the point where I was mostly targeting them because they were the most vulnerable link in the chain of a lot of wireless networks.
Yeah, MikroTik offers like a lot of sort of IoT solutions, like smart switches and stuff like that. Just like stuff that you wouldn't think would have like smart stuff inside of them. And it's really weird because like lots of them will have like SSH enabled. And I'm willing to bet that people that are buying these devices like for convenience probably aren't like changing out the default credentials. So that's sketchy.
Well, once someone in the chat says, one time I hacked a monitor for a weed farm.
Hey.
Wow. Well, I hope you didn't do our idea of jacking up the temperature all the way and starting a fire, because that would be mean.
Yeesh.
All right, let's go to the next question.
Great. Can we get an OWASP ZAP setup tutorial and maybe a demo on Metasploitable 3? Hey, you're the big OWASP ZAP guy.
I am. So if we switch over to my screen, you can see that I have been using OWASP ZAP to try to take apart the requests that make a canary token. So this is like a way where I'm using these requests to format something inside the Wi-Fi Nugget, which, by the way, someone asked what the Wi-Fi Nugget is. We'll get to that. In order to like make an automatic canary token get generated once you provide your email address. So the idea here is like I would be able to use OWASP ZAP to reverse engineer all the different web requests that are exchanged in order to make that happen, and then just do it programmatically on my side. So that I've been using this a lot for not just pen testing, but also for reverse engineering, seeing the way the different APIs work, and it's really, really good at that. So yeah, I would love to show this off a little bit more because I love the program. I think it's great that it's free, but the documentation's not so good sometimes. So yeah, no, I can do that. OWASP ZAP Setup tutorial. I can do that. But if you kind of have to like at least try one thing. So if you have an idea for like what you want me to do, I've done a couple OWASP ZAP like getting started and going videos, but a full setup video using maybe a bunch of the different features or a more complex problem, like that would be cool. Because there's so many different things you can use this for. It's like Wireshark. You have to have an objective. Otherwise, there's just a bunch of buttons and you can whack them. But like whether or not it does what you want depends on what your goal is in the first place. So I'd love to do that. Some of our OWASP videos haven't been performing so great, which I think is so sad because it's probably my favorite new program I've learned all year. So if you haven't considered it, go back and check it out because OWASP is by far my favorite program for taking apart web requests, pen testing applications, and doing all sorts of other cool web stuff. So,
like sending someone a whole bunch of B-movie scripts.
Like sending someone a whole bunch of copies of the B-movie script because they tried to phish my non-existent cryptocurrency wallet.
Yep.
Which was a very fun video. If you haven't seen that one, we put that one out last week, the week before.
God, time flies.
Time
I think
flies,
2
yeah.
weeks ago
Oh my
already.
gosh. Yeah, so if you haven't seen that, then that is when we took on a scammer who was trying to phish me and ended up using OWASP ZAP to send him lots and lots of both real-looking data and then also just copies of the B-movie script until his database was probably full to the point it couldn't accept any more submissions because it adds up quickly. Like that's kind of a long script to send as one text file. So
yeah. Maybe in the near future we'll see OWASP ZAP either making people really sweaty or destroying centrifuges.
Maybe. Yeah,
Great.
maybe. I think that could be one of the ways that we break into whatever this vulnerable industrial device we're creating for our next Hack 5 episode is.
Yep.
All right, what is the next question?
Oh, hey, we can take that question. What is a Wi-Fi nugget?
What is a Wi-Fi nugget, Alex?
The Wi-Fi nugget, if I have one. Of course I have one. I always do. This is a project we've been working on that's basically a kit that's meant to teach beginners about hacking, various topics in it. This specific Wi-Fi nugget is the S2 nugget. This one's focused on USB attacks. So this is basically just a compact platform that you can use that has sort of like walkthrough software that lets you like learn about hacking stuff. In this case, it walks you through like USB attacks, HID attacks, and lets you monitor them on screen. And it's also like fully customizable. So you're able to program it in languages like MicroPython and stuff like that.
And CircuitPython?
Wait.
I mean, you could use. You could use.
CircuitPython is way cooler.
CircuitPython is way cooler because it's made by Adafruit and they do a really good job with it.
Yeah. We also have the other variation of the Wi-Fi nugget if you want to talk about that one.
Wait, which version?
The Wi-Fi Nugget?
Oh, you
the
mean
D1,
the D1?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we also...
the D1 Wi-Fi Nugget is the version that's based on the D1 Mini, and it's primarily for Wi-Fi attacks. So the S2 one that we made is a really good way of getting started with like HID attacks and USB stuff with the Wi-Fi interface. And then the D1 Nugget is based on the D1 Mini, which uses the ESP8266 and is more useful for like Wi-Fi attacks like deauthentication, creating fake networks, and that sort of thing. Yeah. And it can't really do the same kind of USB attacks the other one can. All right. So one question is whether Mac OS or Windows is better for virtual machines. I don't really use Windows that much, but I can report my experience with Mac OS. And with the Mac OS computer, depending on what type of virtualization you're using, it can be either a complicated process or just a laborious process. I imagine if you're doing virtual machines that don't require wireless networking like I do, it might be a little easier. There seems to be some weird stuff going on with like the Mac OS Wi-Fi network adapter and the way it works and whether or not there's drivers for it. And it really, really has a hard time with plugging in like an additional wireless network adapter and then running it through a virtual machine, because that's the way you have to do it in order to do Wi-Fi hacking on a Mac OS device. The most recent Mac OS device I have, which is not their like custom silicon one, it's like the old Intel one, does a terrible job of virtualization when it comes to Wi-Fi like networking attacks. If somebody's using a Mac OS device and getting great performance out of like Wi-Fi hacking and it's a recent Mac OS device, please let me know, because maybe I'm doing something wrong. But it always seems like it's going to take off from the desk in terms of how much fan usage it's doing, and it gets super hot and then crashes, usually for even doing very, very basic stuff like getting an IF config in like Kali Linux, trying to use a wireless network adapter. So I don't recommend it, but I also don't know if Windows is any better, so that's kind of a lopsided answer.
I can't speak to either as a Linux user, but I've had decent luck using VirtualBox on a Linux machine. I tend to usually just do live booting off a USB because I hate virtualization, and it just eats up like a lot of memory, whereas like live booting just gives you like raw access to bare metal.
Another good question was, which is harder to gain control of, iOS or Android? I would say it's probably easier to gain control of an Android device because the environment's a lot less regulated. You can install apps if you want to from just the internet. Like, it's easier to get a sketchy program to run on an Android phone than it is to attack an iOS phone most of the time. There's always exceptions. Of course, it also depends on who you are. If you are an NSO group, then it's probably going to be pretty easy to break into like an iOS device because that's your bread and butter. That's what you do. But for the average person, I would say an Android phone is probably easier to attack. Don't necessarily quote me on it, though. I haven't broken into a lot of iOS devices, so I'm not really sure personally. But Android devices are pretty easy to attack unless there's certain non-standard features that are enabled.
I would say the same, mostly.
So one question is, do you guys think other channels like yours, Hacking Educational, would be restricted or outright banned in the future? So this is something that actually is the reason why I'm talking to you today. I got hired at Varonis because the Nullbyte channel was in the news for having a bunch of their videos taken down by YouTube and getting a bunch of content strikes. So eventually they reversed them because there's a big fuss about it, but that sort of censorship definitely comes around, and there's a lot of people who don't understand the point of ethical hacking content. They just see it as ways of attacking individuals or businesses and not as training the kind of people who will need to simulate those attacks in order to keep people safe, or at least be educated enough about them to identify them when they happen. So, once educated people get involved, there's always kind of the trend for these channels to be left alone. But one thing that can count against you is professionalism. Like, we went through the trouble of having a whole set with a nice camera and a microphone and Michael, working the dials and making sure everything looks good. If you are just one person and you are making, lower quality content that maybe doesn't look like it's as targeted towards like our audience, for example, then you might get misinterpreted as someone who's just putting out content that's instructional hacking on how to like phish people, for example, or like run scamming campaigns. So presentation really does matter, because the people that are doing this do not really understand what this sort of ethical hacking content is for unless we make it really explicit, and there's really a big reaction when these channels get taken down. Once you get large enough, then you usually know enough people to make sure that if your channel gets taken down, somebody will help you get it brought back up via public outrage. But it's not good that that's the mechanism that these ethical hacking channels have to go through in order to get their stuff put back up. Because if you have too many videos taken down, it restricts you from being able to upload them again in the future. And we at Hack5 have even had videos in the past that have been flagged. And I believe one of them was how to hack this deliberately vulnerable application that is specifically made for ethical hacking. We got a flag for that, and we had to like fight it and stuff. And the problem is, like, a lot of the time, these videos will be up for quite some time, and then they'll get flagged and cause like a whole issue where we can't upload for a while. And that's something that as a larger channel, we have the capacity to deal with. It's just very annoying. But as a smaller channel, it can completely wipe out your motivation for wanting to make more content once you get, you know, too many negative things happening to you. I can name a couple different content creators who have tried to make YouTube channels and then ended up either getting their videos taken down by YouTube or just getting harassed by other people into having their content taken down or flagged. So it's really difficult for some people to get started. And it's very discouraging also for young content creators who are first starting out and making this sort of stuff and then getting hammered by like trolls and then also, you know, YouTube itself sometimes when it comes to them taking down your stuff.
That's a good point. Besides just like being like deplatformed for like posting like sketchy hacker stuff, there's also people that will like want to gatekeep the community and just like troll you like for their own entertainment, which sucks. Honestly, like when I was like making my own personal YouTube videos, like two or three of them like got taken down and just like kind of discouraged me from making like flat out like hacker tutorials. It depends really like how you want to paint it. I think the ones that do end up performing better are the ones that we sort of like do in a Mythbusters like style episode where we're like showcasing like hacking for a scenario or like talking about it in like a third person view or perspective on like how a hacker would like do such and such, rather than just like straight up provide information that seems dubious to YouTube's ethics.
Yeah, and one person just says ethics though, and that is a question we get asked a lot when it comes to making this sort of content. Where is the line between making something that is how to phish a user or like how to break into your girlfriend's account? I've seen other content creators that I consider to be like major content creators make stuff that's like very on the line of like what you would expect to see in like an abusive relationship, or like so the kind of thing that you would either be like, wow, that's either illegal or like super unethical to like instructionally teach people how to, you know, like hack the phone of like your girlfriend or something. Like that's something we would never do because that clearly crosses the line. We would also never make something like how to like phish a user's cryptocurrency information, like because like what value does that provide other than like to criminals? So we really have to be careful about the kind of content we publish. And for other people that don't know this, they might get, you know, they might end up making something that crosses that line and not know it if they are not in a community of people that are reminding them of what's appropriate and what's not. So, you know, there's all sorts of kind of like individual things to this because, yeah, you can make a YouTube channel that's mostly ethical hacking, but then you make a couple of videos about how to hack your girlfriend. Like, should your content be taken down? In my opinion, you probably shouldn't post content about how to hack your girlfriend. I think you should go to couples counseling. But, you know, like, I'm not in the business of censoring people, so I'm not really, like, sure where the line is. I just know where we personally ourselves are comfortable, and we would never cover content like that or anything that would allow a criminal to, you know, right away just take what we did and then try to go exploit someone. Now, will we cover active things that are wrong with standards like Wi-Fi? Oh, of course, because like you have to know about that. But we're not going to like, you know, create a campaign and then teach everybody how to follow a playbook. Like that's not what we do. But we will talk about things that other people have already shown off that as common knowledge, like different things that maybe haven't been fixed yet. And that's where I think like making sure that there's pressure on those things to be fixed, to be changed, is exactly how they get changed. Not through hoping nobody will find them. That's just a ridiculous way of hoping that security will manifest itself by just burying your secrets and hoping no one ever looks for them, or making it illegal or difficult to look for them or shine a light on them. So it's a touchy topic because some people really don't like the fact that we make ethical hacking stuff, and they ask us to take it down, or they'll deny us permission to do events because they don't see the point of it. So it's something we have to defend all the time.
Someone asks, what is the best virtual server to run Hashcat? I'm assuming you just want like a ton of power dedicated to cracking hashes, maybe. So addressing it from that stance, I think it was actually my first video. I showed how you can use Google Colab as like a virtual cloud-based GPU for cracking hashes.
Of course, you can only use this for your own hashes. Otherwise, all of your Google accounts will be banned, and possibly any associated with the same IP address. So I'm always a little hesitant when Alex mentions this, because we have had people tell us that their entire Google account has been banned for doing this. So while it's a great idea, it can also like completely lock you out of, if you have anything in Google Drive that's important, you could have all that stuff wiped out if you experiment with this method. So before we suggest this, let's just tell you that little caveat where this could eliminate everything that you put into Google if you try it. Is there another server perhaps that you would recommend?
I mean, really any VPS if you're up for renting one. But as far as that goes, that's my only suggestion.
Okay. Does anybody know the laptops that we use? Yeah, I do, because they're both mine.
Hey.
That is a T430 ThinkPad that I got for Christmas off of eBay. And this is a MacBook Pro that my work bought me.
Nice.
Would we recommend either of them?
I would recommend ThinkPads. Generally, the newer ones are pretty kick-ass. Like the X1 Carbon is great. I also am pretty interested in the Dell XPS as like a platform for doing like Linux stuff. It's also really lightweight. That's my recommendations for laptops.
Yeah. Would I recommend a macOS system for hacking? If someone else would buy it for you, sure. But otherwise, I would probably get another ThinkPad, honestly. All right, what's our next question?
Let me pull up an old question.
Hold on. How do people gain complete access of a phone without touching it? Beating up the user with the metal pipe and asking for their PIN. Maybe having them type it in.
Yeah,
all right,
that's
next question.
More or less correct. Okay. Where can I get Alex's phishing simulator site to try this with my own Raspberry Pi? Zap crypto scammers with the B movie.
Yes. So that was a question on our B-movie script video, and Alex created his own like a simulated phishing site. And this, of course, says on it that it's a scam, and says that it's a scam multiple times. So this is not something you could just deploy and use against someone unless you had a lot of web design experience with back-end experience. So if you have both of those things already, you don't really need us to make a really, really bad, basically website that just logs whatever you put into it into a CSV file. So
if you want to switch over to my screen real quick. You can see this pretty legit scam site here that you can deploy. It's called Crypto Scam. In fact, it's the hottest new crypto scam that's around. There's not exactly a lot of like substantive backend going on here. It just like dumps whatever is inputted into this text box straight to a CSV file. So it's not exactly useful for actually being used as like a scam thing. But if you want to try this out and follow the demonstration that we did, you can find this on my GitHub at github.com/alexlind. So
yeah, and please do not use this to try to phish people. It is the worst phishing page ever. It will not work well for you, and if you know how to modify this into a phishing page, you could just make your own phishing page that would be so much better.
It's hardly a website, let alone a scam page.
All right, next question.
Great. Have you guys experimented with the ESP32 LoRa devices? I've actually seen a few of those. They're pretty interesting. There's like single board ESP32 devices that have like built-in LoRa and like OLEDs and other stuff like that. Those are pretty cool. I said, seems like you could do some extreme long-range HID attacks with it over 902 to 928 megahertz. Yeah, the range on LoRa devices is... All right. The range on LoRa... The range on LoRa devices are pretty great. I think they go up to like 3 miles in like a dense area, if I'm correct, and can go up to like 10 miles with like line of sight. I know you did like experimentation with like just Wi-Fi where you had like a huge antenna that was able to reach like up to 5 miles away.
Yeah, if you're on top of like the Hollywood sign, then you can like reach to downtown, but that's like line of sight. So if you have a situation where it's line of sight, you can get some pretty good distance, even with Wi-Fi, but I imagine with LoRa it'd be even better.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. We just might do that. I've been wanting to do like other protocols like the NRF24L01 and other like just different radio protocols, but LoRa seems cool. We might do that.
Yeah, so the big difference with LoRa is that it has really great range, but it cannot transmit very much data. So if we were like triggering an HID payload, that would totally work. Like if you were just sending it a short code, But if you were trying to send like the whole HID program,
Oh yeah.
I do not think that would work.
Yeah. With something like the Wi-Fi Nugget setup though, if it's like on the other end, and has like Lora, and you also have like a Lora connection like somewhere else, and there's just like payloads that are already stored there, it would be relatively easy to just like trigger a few pre-stored ones, I would imagine.
This is a great question. How to crack password faster? I want your special way, not Hashcat or AirCrackNG or Rainbow Table.
Dang man.
Why would we
Exhausting
tell
all the
him our
options.
special way? I'm sorry, we're not. So let me just give you a hint. If you were to use like a distributed network instead of like just using like a GPU or something, it might be faster if you would like split up the work amongst a bunch of different, you know, devices instead of just one. But I'm not going to tell you my special way of cracking hashes. No. You have to figure that out for yourself. Sorry, I got to keep some secrets here.
We wouldn't be magicians without our secrets.
Exactly. All right, what's next?
Someone says, I had a customer that added his cat paws to unlock his phone. Okay, this is in regards to...
Toe factor authentication.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yes. So
Right.
on April 1st, a new form of authentication was recommended by the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency, and it specifically calls for using something that you don't leave all over everything all the time, because you only have your fingerprints. And, you know, if you leave them on a glass or a water bottle or something and someone gets a hold of them, then boom, all of your biometric authentication is busted. So what comes with its own layer of protection, which we could maybe call SSL? Yes.
Secure sock layer.
Exactly. Well, toes.
Yes.
A toe can be registered as your device in order to make it easy for you to have a high level of security without exposing yourself with all these nasty fingerprints all over everything. Now, if you're just out there with the boys flopping around leaving toe prints everywhere, then of course this isn't going to work. But if you wear closed-toed shoes, then we demonstrated how it is possible to use your big toe in order to unlock your phone with a mount or a friend.
Does this work with other toes though? That's
What do you mean?
like, can you use other toes that aren't your big toe?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
It's all the same. So, provided there's some sort of pattern going on there, you can use a lot of stuff to lock and unlock your phone. Use your imagination, you know. But we demonstrated this, and apparently one of our users went a step further. And you know, the old saying is for security, it's like something you know, and then like something you have. And in this case, it's something you have. Your cat. You could just use your cat's paw to unlock your phone. But if you ever don't have your cat with you, which should never happen, but if you ever don't have your cat with you, then you would be unable to log into any of your devices. So just notice of that, where if your cat runs away, you're going to be locked out of every way you could, you know, send information about your cat, potentially.
Not
your
unless
phone,
you got
your
those
email.
toes ready.
Yeah, exactly. So keep a toe factor as a backup if you're using a pet as your primary method of authentication. Whew. All right. Next question.
All right. Why does Kody have German stickers on his PC?
That's such a great question. I went to the C3 conference in Germany, and I got a bunch of German stickers because I did some demos. I got to teach a workshop, and then I went to the C3 hackerspace in Munich, and I got to meet a bunch of people there. I got to do another workshop, and I earned myself some stickers. So by mingling with the German hacker community is how I got these stickers. And also, I think the people from Maltego took me out in Munich and showed me some really cool stuff. So I have some stickers from Maltego as well. So all from the same trip. Super, super fun. The C3 conference was awesome. I had a really good time, and I will be back as soon as it's practical again.
Yes. Yeah, you have a nice little mosaic of stickers going on both of these laptops. I'm pretty jealous.
So another question is, hey guys, have you taken over for Darren and Shannon?
Ah.
If so, what are they up to now? Haven't watched Hack 5 in a while, so was surprised to see some new people. Hi. So we originally started over on Nullbyte, and now we're over here producing videos at least once per week. But no, we haven't taken over. And in fact, Shannon's producing content today, so stay tuned for Threatwire, and has been for quite some time. So there's been an unbroken chain of Threatwire going back a very long time, and Darren is working on hardware stuff. So you might have noticed all these new products that were coming out. Well, Darren is, of course, the mastermind behind that. So we have started making a lot more content, but I mean, Darren pops up in our videos not super often, but like we've intersected several times over the last year and made some like collaboration videos. He's also dropped in on this live stream. So no, Darren's not gone. And in fact, you can find him here sometimes. Yeah, no, he's still around. But honestly, making all these hardware devices, like we're making one hardware device, and it has taken us like 8 months, and we are exhausted and working on it constantly. So the fact that there are so many different Hack5 devices out there you can buy is a direct result of Darren letting us make a bunch of content while he works on a bunch of new things, including things like the OMG cable and other stuff that's being contributed by people like us, like the Wi-Fi Nugget, which will be launching pretty soon as a Hack5 device, which we're really excited about.
Darren's a busy guy.
He is a busy guy.
Someone says, where did it go? Oh, Alex, don't neglect the pie. More Raspberry Pi projects.
Oh yeah, that'd be. I mean, you can see we have a bunch of them behind us.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're powering all of our 3D printers. Octoprint is a great project.
For the how to hack your girlfriend topic, should you ever decide to take on the problem, suggest a new Hack5 gadget called the Hatchet. What?
What the heck?
Hopefully that's to threaten the person into leaving for violating your boundaries, but I'm not sure exactly if that would be legal. So I'm not sure if the Hack5, the Hatchet, will be a product. But as a counter-hacking product, maybe it's got some potential with some tweaks.
I mean, physical violence is a social engineering method to some degree.
That some people use illegally.
Yeah.
All right, when you were getting started in hacking, what was your Eureka moment where everything fell into place? I am newer to hacking, and I feel like I'm pushing a rock up a hill.
Do you want me to start with that?
Yeah.
Shoot. I'm a bit on the spot. Maybe you can answer.
Sure. So for me, it was probably a year into doing Nullbyte when suddenly the channel caught on and I stopped feeling like a poser. Because it's cool if you have a YouTube channel with 5,000 subscribers, but not for a year. So we were just barely chugging along, and I was also getting a lot of slack. Well, not slack. I was getting a lot of nonsense from the previous editor of Nullbyte, who was just this. So, all right, when I came on to Nullbyte, I was I am going to be a fellow beginner that's learning stuff and teaching other people that are learning too. I'm not going to pretend like I'm some master wizard that I'm not, because I don't have the experience. I'm somebody who's new at this as well, and I want to make it comfortable for everyone. The previous person, who was the editor of Nullbyte, what their persona was I am a master hacker. I have trained the best of the best. Nobody else is like me, and your question is stupid. And I really didn't like that. It was a huge turnoff to have somebody gatekeeping and trying to always just show off that they were better than everyone else. It really didn't feel realistic either. It kind of felt puffy. So I, for a long time, had this person who had been in my job before, outwardly stating that I was a poser and I use a Mac OS computer, so I couldn't possibly be into hacking. And so when we weren't getting that much traction, it really kind of felt that way sometimes when we were just doing this stuff for very little pay in the living room. So for me, the first time everything kind of clicked, not on a technical level, because that would be my story with learning about Wi-Fi hacking, but on a industry level, was when suddenly we had a huge bump in subscribers, and we had 10,000 subscribers all join in a relatively short period of time, and the channel started doing super well, and I realized that this was working. Up until that point, I had no real feedback to let me know that this was a good idea or that I'd found something that worked. So it took finding my place within the big machine of cybersecurity to have that moment where it's oh, I can help here. This is something that's easy for me. I can do this and it's hard for other people. That was the moment where I realized oh, I can do this and other people have a really hard time with this, so I'm good. Hopefully you have a moment like that too.
I think actually it must have happened for me in the past year, just getting affirmation from various people, finding my tutorials inspiring and being able to use them to do other cool stuff, really sort of reaffirmed for me that I wasn't a poser, because I think for the longest time, it took me a while to realize that there's so many different avenues in hacking, and that it's not tied to one specific idealistic perception of what a hacker is or what a hacker should be doing. So realizing that I can venture into programming and hardware and all these different areas of hacking, and be able to teach people that hacking is more than just being able to type in a Linux terminal. And that it's really about really just having a mindset for being able to break things or use things in ways that they weren't created to. That's really when it clicked for me. Yeah, Hack5 was a really cool avenue for me to do all this.
Yeah. So we have a very specific question. Hey guy, is there a way to hide the mass storage on the Raspberry Pi Pico with CircuitPython on it? Yes, there is. So with CircuitPython, on any CircuitPython device that supports human interface device mode, like our S2 Wi-Fi Nugget, for example, you are able to decide whether or not it turns into a USB mass storage device or not within the boot.py script. So super, super easy to do. You just go in, and if you just, just look it up, the boot.py file, hide CircuitPython mass storage, super, super easy find. You just add a single line, it'll hide it. You do, though, need to make it so that you have a way of re-enabling that. Otherwise, you can't go back and edit your code. So make sure if there's a button available on the board, for example, you're like pressing that button or have another way of making it show up as a USB mass storage device. So the reason CircuitPython devices are so cool is you have a little microcontroller like this, you plug it into your computer, and it shows up automatically as USB storage. You drag and drop program files over to it, and it just works. Super easy for beginners, lots of fun. But if you make the USB storage hidden, then beginners have no idea how to get back in there and start editing their code again, and that can be very unfun. So you can totally do it, but be careful, because if you do it and don't know how to reverse it, then you will have problems. I wanted to reward someone who was just asking a low-key question and not spamming, so appreciate it.
It's actually one of the issues we ran into with the Rubber Nugget software, initially developing it with CircuitPython. CircuitPython made it really friendly to be able to create the sort of the tactile version of the Rubber Nugget at first. We honestly wrote it in I think 2 days or something.
Super
it was pretty
fast,
easy to deploy, yeah. But then once we started trying to do stuff like accessing lower level memory and being able to access files from a web server and stuff like that, while also trying to hide files in stealth mode, we just ran into a lot of problems because of that limitation. So we ended up switching over to just writing code in C via Arduino.
Yeah, if you haven't checked it out, look at CircuitPython. It's a super fun way of programming with hardware. And in fact, we have a hardware-related question. Hey, Alex, what do you mean by hardware hacking? Can you reverse engineer an Apple AirTag, for example?
Can I in particular reverse engineer an Apple AirTag? Not at the moment, but it is possible. What I mean by hardware hacking, though, is, just taking existing hardware, figuring out how it works at a bare bones level, and being able to modify it to do something that it wasn't intended for. One of the first hardware hacking projects I started working on was, I think, in middle school, which was with TI-84 calculators. My friends and I just wanted to see what sorts of cool stuff we could do on them, because we noticed they ran BASIC, which is a programming language, so we started coding with that. And then we also figured out that there was ways you could load assembly programs that you could use to interface with built-in hardware on the TI-84. It was actually a little it's sort of like an audio jack. It's like a TRS jack on top of the calculator. But we figured out we could interface with that via assembly code and use it to control external hardware like lights and Arduinos and stuff like that. And that sort of got me into microcontrollers once I figured out you could even connect a calculator to Wi-Fi and send messages with it, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's more or less the gist of what I mean when I say hardware hacking.
All right, good question. How much do you enjoy designing stuff? From PCBs to 3D models, because I personally get a kick out of it, even if it's something simple like a Wi-Fi pineapple case. So I used to do photography, and the idea of having something in your head and creating it in the real world was probably the most pure art you could really do. So thinking of taking a functioning system, something that does something, especially if it's art or something functional, and then even something as simple as this project I've been working on and making it work is cool, because I write the code for this. I scaled the model, I glued the magnet here, I bought the Hall effect sensors and prototyped working with them with CircuitPython. The whole process is as close, I think, to just creating something from nothing and then having it last for a long time as you can really make. Aside from maybe making a sculpture or something with no moving parts. So when it comes to creating something that does something useful or something cool, the process of creating the PCB or 3D modeling it or going through trial and error is so much fun. It's probably one of my favorite things of all time, because it's pure creation. And that's something that not a lot of people get to do, is pluck an idea purely from the depths of their mind and then make it be real. That's something that I feel we're really lucky in getting to do.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi Nugget project sort of has been that for us. It was an experimentation into doing more hardware stuff, which we haven't been able to do before this project. But working through the whole prototyping stuff has been really rewarding and fun.
Another hardware question: how many stickers do I need to put on my laptop to make me a hacker? I have 2 so far. So I know hackers who will not put stickers on their laptop because they don't want to, they don't want to stand out at all. And for me, I do media stuff, so I don't really care. So I have this many stickers to basically tell people what kind of stuff I'm into. So if I sit down at a coffee shop and some developer looks at my laptop, they're going to be looking for like, oh, do they do Java? Like, do they do JavaScript? Like, do they do... And they're not going to see any of that. They're going to, like, my computer reads, I wreck computers. Stay away and turn off your Wi-Fi. So if you also wreck computers, you're going to see my stuff and be like, I love that tool to wreck computers too. And we're going to have a conversation. But if you're somebody who makes stuff, you're going to like turn off port 80 on your like web development server you're working on and maybe like move over to your phone's Wi-Fi network instead of the coffee shops. It's both a warning and a invitation to other people that are interested in the same thing. So if you want to use your computer as that, feel free to. Other people don't feel the need to let everybody else know the specific ways they're into breaking computers, and they're cool with just having their laptop being completely blank. I'm not saying having stickers makes you a hacker. It just makes other hackers know that you're a hacker and other developers uncomfortable.
They also speed up your hacking.
They do speed up your hacking by like 5%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
Someone asks about our job position, but also says, so you're hardware designers, programmers? I think it sounds like a dream job. Yeah, it was pretty fun. It's kind of hard to like narrow down exactly what it is we do, especially since like I'm particularly like free floating right now. I guess I would say I'm like a hardware designer, content creator. What are you, Kody?
I'm a content creator, but I'm also, I guess, like a project manager for this hardware creation company. So I do everything from writing prototypes, and I'm also responsible for the D-pad on the Wi-Fi Nugget.
Hey,
yeah.
Nice.
I made critical innovations to preserve it, to preserve its functionality across design changes, is what I'm going to tell the job recruiter the next time I'm looking for a job. But yeah, like being able to contribute to the process of creating hardware makes me feel like a hardware engineer too, even though I didn't go to school for it, and I'm just kind of catching up and learning these tools as we have problems that I need to fix. But that's how Alex is learning too. You know, Alex didn't go to college for hardware hacking and stuff. He got his hands dirty learning a bunch of nerd stuff that was ruining his day by preventing him from getting something done that he really needed to do. And if you're capable of learning like that, then this sort of path is awesome. And there's a lot of really rewarding stuff you can do because this is a skill that's very much in demand. But hackers kind of come in two different flavors. There's hardware hackers that are more interested in creating stuff with physical hardware and making things whirl around and explode and light up. And then there's software hackers who are more interested in writing code, developing things, creating virtual resources. And when I went back to school to be a computer science major, I very quickly realized that I liked electrical engineering more because I like it when things whirl around and explode. Like, let's do it again.
Let's see if it passes the finger test this time.
Nope, stop. All right, so
did not pass the
as
finger
you can
test.
see, the whole process of creating physical things, for me anyway, is a lot more fun. So that's where I fit somewhere in the middle between hardware hacker and software hacker, and I love that because anytime I meet like a software hacker that thinks they're really cool, I can whip out the hardware hacking side. It's, oh, you've never touched a microcontroller? Oh, that's so sad. You know, and still feel like a cool guy. So not that I would ever gatekeep. I just think that like people that pick her out sometimes double down on it. I'm like, no, software design's the best, and that hardware people are like, no, like you guys don't even work on real stuff. It's all in your head. So it's fun to get to do a little bit of both because honestly, they're both great and they're so much fun. And if you haven't gotten to do a little bit of hardware hacking and you're a software developer, check out CircuitPython or another language that's easy to get started with. I think you'll have a lot of fun because frankly, it makes the whole computer science thing a lot more physical, which for me makes it a lot more enjoyable when you're making stuff.
Yeah, it's cool to make and break stuff.
All right. What's up? What's up next? Everyone really likes that you destroyed my prototype, but that's okay. I have more.
That's what we do.
I have more.
Dang. Do you have any questions from the chat?
Yeah, there's lots of questions.
Great.
So I am looking to move from years in IT over to InfoSec. Would you recommend that I reduce my online footprint and socials? Like, should I hide my real name? That's such a good question. So obviously, if you look at my Twitter, it's just Kody Kinzie. It's just my name. And Alex is also just his name.
Yep.
So because we create content, like obviously being easy to find is like very important for you guys to be able to find like when we make new stuff. So being tracked downable is part of our deal as our job. Now, as a cybersecurity person that might be exposed to some sort of vetting, do you want a bunch of online content specifically attributed to you? For example, my GitHub mentions my name exactly 0 times. It's all under my hacker name, Skika. And I do that deliberately because all of my security research and other stuff like that, I put out under, you know, a name that doesn't have like plausible deniability per se, but at least won't come up in an online search directly attributed to my name. And I think that's good because sometimes I do edgy stuff, and like maybe I want to keep my research under my hacker name, and I want to keep all my official stuff under my real name, like media and that sort of stuff. So I would say, yeah, like you might want to reduce your online like footprint a little bit. You might want to come up with a hacker name and do research under that. For me anyway, it provides a little bit of a firewall between work that I'm not ready to sign my name to yet, and then work that's like completed and done and that I'm proud of. So if you want to have like a working portfolio that other hackers can see and interact with, having a hacker name or an alias is probably a good idea, honestly, like as just something that specifically in this industry is very normal and people kind of get. So yeah, I love getting to like recommend that people get a hacker name. Like, yeah, get a hacker name, just find one. Have someone make it for you. Not every hacker name is perfect. In fact, I know someone whose hacker name is disgusting and can't even be mentioned on the stream. So like if you have a hacker name that's inappropriate, then make sure that you're not doing it. Make sure that there's a little bit more of a firewall. Because again, my hacker name, Skika, like it, I don't care if you guys know that. Like, you can find all my work. Like, I do, when I do demos, I link my GitHub. So it's like, it doesn't take a genius to figure that out. But I still, like, my edgiest Wi-Fi work, like, I'm not going to do that under my full name yet. Like, I'm going to do it when it's ready and everything's sanitized and cleaned up and looks nice. So
I would say, like, really do just, like, privatize your private stuff, though. Like, if you have, like, your own, like, personal social media, please, like, make that private. I am going through some weird stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you make yourself a big public target by producing media or contributing stuff or like causing a ruckus with like some research, then just be prepared for people who don't like your stuff to potentially track you down. Because for me, I made a TikTok video where somebody took it wrong. The video went viral. It got like over 300,000 views in like I think 24 hours or 12 hours, and then somebody watched it, looked me up, looked up the company I work for, called the company I worked for and complained to them using completely wrong details. The video was about how I think like a coffee shop had bad Wi-Fi security, and they told my work that I provided a step-by-step guide on hacking a McDonald's. So like this was like a big conversation. Like it had to go through the normal complaint chain because it's like I work for a real business. So yeah, it was pretty wild to have someone who just didn't like my work use it as an avenue for harassment. So just realize if you're in certain roles, that can happen, and that's something that we've had to be careful about. Because some people just don't like our work, and they have the time to be petty about it.
Maybe they were just mad that you didn't hack McDonald's and fix their ice cream machines.
Maybe. Yeah, there are a lot of complaints about that.
Yeah. Someone asks, do you recommend any hacking books or other resources to get you started? I actually just pulled up a great GitHub repository that I used to reference like a lot. That's literally just called Awesome Ethical Hacking Resources, and we can dump that in the chat, but this has a lot of great resources for like vulnerable machines that you can use if you want to practice your hacking skills. There's everything from like Wi-Fi hacking to password cracking, malware analysis, different operating systems. It's pretty extensive. If you know like specifically which like niche of like hacking you want to get into, I think this has some pretty great resources, and also just like beginner channels and like other books you might want to check out. So yeah.
What advice would you give your younger self before entering cybersecurity or InfoSec?
I'm actually not sure.
I would say it's the most important thing that you can do when you enter a new industry is find out what kind of stuff you can do that you've already learned to do in the past that's easy for you, that's hard for other people in order to make more money. It always sucks to start at the beginning, and a lot of people feel like when they come into a new industry that they have to start at the beginning. But that's not true. If you've worked in another industry, for me, I had worked in photography, logistics, tech startups, and like a bunch of other stuff. So and security, like physical security, where I was the head of security for a music venue in Los Angeles called the Echoplex. So having done all that, I knew how to do crowd control. I knew how to talk to people. I knew how to do social engineering. I knew how to spot a fake ID. I knew how to do all these things that in the future ended up helping me a lot because I understood how these systems work. And then working in a startup, I knew how to do project management. I knew how to deploy technology. I knew how to explain totally abstract concepts to regular people. And it turns out that's what got me a high-paying job. So, I thought that going into cybersecurity, I had to start all from the beginning, but I did it. In fact, I had lots of skills that cybersecurity people suck at. And that made me a lot more valuable than I thought I was. So rather than going in and thinking that the stuff you learned working at a gas station or whatever is totally irrelevant, like maybe it makes you better than other people at something because they don't have the same experience as you. And that's something that I found to be really helpful later on after I realized that I didn't have to start from scratch.
Yeah, what's really cool is there's just like so many different areas of hacking, and I think like really you're just like great at like talking to people. So like social engineering is like probably something that's a great like sort of avenue to get into hacking.
You have to listen to like 1,000 bad jokes from people giving you their ID in a night. You learn to make conversation.
Yeah, I think maybe advice to give my younger self is just like completely get rid of like any preconceived notions you have of like what cybersecurity or like hacking is. Because I feel like I had like a lot of just like idealized views of like what I should know before I could like consider myself a hacker, and I just felt like I wasn't like learning enough, and I was like just like too dumb to do a lot of the stuff that I was trying to do. But one of the things that like really looped me in was like doing hardware hacking, and I just felt like really connected with that once I realized like that also is a perfectly valid and also like cool part of hacking.
Also, I appreciate everyone saying supporting things in the chat about that incident I had with the TikTok video. Frankly, that's actually why I don't make TikTok videos anymore. I got tired of it, like after all the stuff that happened from that one video. So we're gonna do TikTok videos again. But yeah, it was really discouraging, and I have so much respect for like TikTok content creators who deal with this kind of harassment, because we met up with Serena, aka She Networks, and just talked to her about her experience with creating TikTok content. And it was crazy. I don't know why anyone would do that for free, like initially when you're starting out and not getting paid to do this stuff, it's just like, why would you deal with the abuse? Yeah. Like obviously like once you get through it, like it's like, I hate to say it's worth it, but it is worth it. But it's just crazy how entitled people feel to like, yeah, just contacting your company and filing a complaint because they don't like a TikTok video that you made. So as a content creator, I never realized how exposed I was until that happened. And that, again, that's why I haven't made TikTok videos in a while, because like who wants to have like a HR meeting about something that never happened? Oh yeah, and if you haven't checked out She Networks, check out her content on TikTok. It's awesome. All right. I think we're pretty much up on our time. So somebody also asked, do you know about Spring for Shell? Yeah, if you check out the Security Forward channel and the Security FWD, or go to hackingwithfriends.com, you can find out about our Friday news stream that we do on the Security Forward channel, where we talked about Spring for Shell and a bunch of other vulnerabilities that came out last week. So if you want to keep up with that, subscribe to the Security Forward channel, and you can hear about all the new hacking news that's coming out. All right. Okay. I think that's all the time we have for today. It's been an hour, so thank you to everyone with your great questions. Frankly, it's really, really cool to get to talk to everyone who watches our videos, people who maybe haven't checked out Hack Live in a while, and answer these questions, like, Darren not being dead and off to working on hardware stuff, and why we're here and not on Nullbyte, and all the other questions we've answered today. So if you have a question that hasn't been answered, or if you think of a new one, then feel free to leave it on the YouTube video. We will make sure to answer it by next week, where we will be live again at the same time. So thank you, Alex, for hosting again. And if you want to see us more often, if you want to join us on Friday, we would love to hear your comments. We'll be completely live again, so we'll be able to answer maybe even some of your questions on Friday. Just make sure to check out the Security Forward, the Security FWD channel. And yeah, that's it for this week. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.